Hey, Father Tony, good to see you again.
Hey, Alan McCauley. I see you're donning the
Yes.
green today because we're honoring one of the most popular and beloved saints of all time, Saint Patrick, right?
Exactly.
And we honor him as a great Christian missionary.
Yep.
He was a slave, a shepherd, a priest, and known as the apostle to Ireland.
Right.
And we have 4 parishes, not just one, 4 parishes that are named in his honor. We have St. Patrick's in Racine, and we also have Milwaukee, Elkhorn, and in Whitewater. So tell us about this great man, St. Patrick.
Well, St. Patrick was born in the late 4th century, late 300s. And let's dispel the myth right away. He was not Irish. Yes, I know it's true. It's a shock. St. Patrick was born in Western Britain, what we would call Wales today. But it was somewhat common for Irish raiders to come across the Irish Sea, and they would kidnap young kids. They would also steal valuables, but they'd kidnap kids because they were easy to train, they were easier to control, and unfortunately when he was about 12, he was a victim of these raids, one of these raids, and he was kidnapped, taken back to Ireland. But about 6 years he was there, and he, very young, but he still remembered prayers like the Our Father, and he would pray them out loud over and over again because he was alone for weeks at a time, and sometimes it would be the only voice he would hear. We know all this because he wrote 2 documents, one of which was an autobiography of sorts called Confession. And after about 6 years, he, in a dream, had this message, this idea from God that he was to escape. He had to travel about 200 miles by foot to get to the coast. He was able to secure passage on a boat, made it back home where he was reunited with his folks. He ended up going to Gaul, to France, to study to be a priest, and he kept hearing these dreams, these voices, the voice of God.
And one of the voices also said to him, I want you to be the voice of the Irish.
Right, right. And so even though he wasn't technically Irish, he clearly was adopted by them because he did go back as a bishop with the ability to baptize. And like you said, he was a great evangelizer in that nation. So what can you tell us about St. Patrick's personality, some of his characteristics?
I think, first of all, he was very courageous. To be able to go back to the land that he left, where he was enslaved, where he was held captive, where his life was at stake, and then to be the voice of the Irish shows great, great courage. And I think he was a man who of great faith, that he had that sense of a calling and a sense to be a missionary and to be able to spread and evangelize the good news and have that confidence that he could do that, At the breastplate of St. Patrick, Christ before me, Christ beside me, Christ within me, up to the left, to the right. All that he had that kind of a strong faith that enabled him to say, I can go into this foreign land and foreign territory, and knowing that Christ is around me, within me, above me, all of that he was able to evangelize the faith.
We also know he was a man of great justice because he called in his one or two of his writings to really treat women with care and respect. And that was unheard of at that time because women were more or less property, unfortunately. And he also is said to have by the end of his life, ended the practice of human sacrifice, saying, no, Christ's sacrifice was once and for all sufficient for everyone.
For all sin.
Right.
So Al, tell us a little bit about how St. Patrick is often depicted with symbols and signs.
Well, he was a bishop, so obviously he's going to have the mitre and the crozier. That would be very common in most depictions. He's almost always wearing green, right? Because Ireland is the Emerald Isle, and we think of that way. But it's interesting because you see icons and sometimes pictures of Patrick wearing red, holding the shamrock, so you know it's him, but he's wearing red because that was the color of Britain, to show that he was in fact British by birth, not Irish. The shamrock itself is obviously another key symbol that's associated with Patrick, and the legend tells us that he used it to teach the pagans about the Trinity, the Father, Son, and Spirit. I think the legend tells us more about what Patrick's great faith was in God, that God was going to protect him, the people, which goes back to the Patrick's breastplate, the idea of protection, that God in prayer is our protection. So how can we be guided by St. Patrick today?
St. Patrick is not only a symbol within the Catholic tradition, but the whole Irish culture and the whole Irish tradition. He represents everything Irish, and on March 17th, we're all Irish. because he was such a great missionary. I think the best way we can honor him and be guided by him is to become missionaries in our own foreign land, calling them back to Christ and helping them to put on the breastplate. Recognize that Christ is before us, within us, around us, in all that we are and all that we do.
Father Tony, thanks for talking about St. Patrick. This has been fantastic.
Great to be with you too, Al. And as we celebrate St. Patrick's Day, we raise a glass to him and his memory, and to remember to be evangelists of the good news.
Right. And remember, we don't need saints to reach God. God uses saints to reach us.